Kyoshi's Nightmare. The Iceberg. Chapter 7. Really into this. Unfolds a lot. Just learned about Avatar Salai. Salai. The fire one before Kuruk. So interesting. The Iceberg. Kyoshi's nightmare smelled like wet bison. You know, air bison. It was raining, and bales of cargo wrapped in burlap splashed in the mud around her as if they had fallen from great heights, part of the storm. It no longer mattered what was in them. A flash of lightning revealed hooded figures looming over her. Their faces were obscured by masks of running water. "I hate you," Kyoshi screamed. "I hate you until I die. I'll never forgive you." The nightmare. Two hands clasped each other. A transaction was struck, one that would be violated that instant it became inconvenient to uphold. Something wet and lifeless hit her in the shins. Papers sealed in oilcloth. "Kyoshi!" She woke up with a start, nearly pitched over the side of Ping Pang's saddle. I guess she had a nightmare while she was riding on Ping Pang, which is the Airbender Guardians air bison. She caught herself on the rail, but the sanded edge pressed into her side. Stared at the rolling blue beneath them. It was a long way down to the ocean. It wasn't rain on her face, but sweat. She saw a droplet fall off her chin and plummet into nothingness, where someone grabbed her by the shoulders and yanked her back. She fell on top of Yun and Rangi, squashing the wind out of them. "Don't scare us like that," Yun shouted. "What happened?" Kelsang said, trying to shift around from the driver's seat without disturbing the reins. "Nothing, Master Kelsang," Rangi grumbled. "Kyoshi had a bad dream." "Well, okay then, but be careful. No rough housing. We don't want anyone getting hurt before we get there. Jianju would have my head on a platter." He gave Kyoshi an extra glance of worry. So Jianju is an earthbender, and he was the earthbender who was looking for the Avatar and, I guess part of the White Lotus. And Kelsang was the airbender. He had been caught off guard by Yun's sudden mission, and her agreeing to tag along only amplified his worry more. This treaty signing was too important to cast doubt on Yun's avatarhood now. Until it was over, Kelsang would have to help her shoulder the burden of the secret. The lie by omission that he thinks she's actually the Avatar. Below them on the water's surface, trailing only slightly behind, was the ship bearing Yun's earthbending master, as well as Heiran. Remember Rangi's mother, who's the firebending master, teacher, who was in love with Kuruk? Who the love poem that Kyoshi remembered? And a small contingent of armed guards, aided by the occasional boost of wind that Kelsang generated with a whirl of his arms. The grand junk kept pace with Ping Ping, its battened sails billowing in full. Kelsang's bison was dry and well-groomed for the occasion, her white fur fluffy as a cloud underneath her fancier saddle. But the stiff salt breeze still carried a hint of the beastly odor. That must have been what I smelled in my dream. It had been a very long time since Kelsang had taken her for a ride, and the unfamiliar environment rattled her sleeping mind. This titanic, six-legged animal stretched its jaws wide and yawned like he agreed with her. And speaking of dressing up, Jianju had given Kyoshi an outfit so far beyond her station, she'd almost broken out in hives when she saw it. She thought the pale green silk blouse and leggings would have been enough, but then the wardrobe attendants brought in pleated skirts, shoulder-length wraparound jacket, and a wide sash with such exquisite stitching that it should have been mounted on a wall rather than tied on her waist. Kind of sounds like her Kyoshi outfit. The other servants had to help her into the clothing. She didn't miss the looks they shared on her back. That Kyoshi had abused the master's favoritism is what they said with their eyes. Once the pieces were assembled, They melded to her body like she'd been born to wear them. Each layer slid over the next with ease, granting full mobility. She didn't ask anyone where the clothes that fit her so well came from, not wanting to hear a snappy answer like, Jianzhu ripped them off the corpse of some fallen giant he defeated. The serious nature of the task ahead made itself clear when she finished dressing. The inside of the jacket was lined with chain mail. That's obviously like so you don't get stabbed. It's like armor, chain armor. Not thick enough to stop a spear with a person's and to weight behind it, but strong enough to absorb a dart or the slash of a hidden knife. The weight of the metal links on her shoulders said, expect trouble. Why are the four of us up here and not down there? Kyoshi said, pointing at the boat. I insisted, Yun said. Sifu wasn't happy about it, but I told him I needed time to myself. To go over the plan? Yun looked off in the distance. Sure, like he cares. He had been acting strangely lately, but then again he was a new avatar about to enact a decree in one of the most hostile settings imaginable. Yun might have had all the talent and the best teachers in the world, but he was still diving into the abyss with this one, headlong. Your master has good reason for his reluctance, Kelsang said. At one point it was somewhat of a tradition for the avatar to travel extensively with his or her friends without the supervision of elders, but Heiran, Jianzhu, and I think the three of us weren't the positive influences on Kuruk that we were supposed to be. Jianzhu views that period of our youth as a great personal failing of his. Oh wow, well, now we get a little truth. Jianzhu, Heiran, and Kuruk, the water avatar that just died too young, who was a party animal, used to hang out with them when they were young. Ooh. They taught him how to be a party animal. Don't criticize Yun's past life, Rangi said, whacking her shoulder with the mitten Dan. The avatars tread paths of great destiny. Every action they take is meaningful. They meaningfully passed over another 3 dull, meaningful hours in southward flight. It got colder, much colder. They put on parkas and they bundled themselves in quilts. They swooped over otter penguins and wriggled atop ever-growing chunks of floating ice. The cry of Antarctic birds could be heard on the wind. We're here, Kelsang said. He was the only one who hadn't put on extra layers. It was theorized around the mansion that airbenders were simply immune to the weather. Hold on for the descent. Their target was an iceberg almost as big as Yokoya itself. The blue crag rose into the air as high as the hills of the earthbound village. A small, flat shelf ringed the formation, presumably giving them a place to set up camp. Most of the far side was obscured by the peak. But as they flew over, lower, Kyoshi caught a glimpse of tents dotting the opposite shoreline. It was the Fifth Nation delegation. I don't see their fleet, Rangi said. Well, part of the terms that the negotiating grounds be even. For her, that meant no warships. For us, that meant no ground, no earth to bend. That's why it's over in the ice. The compromise didn't feel even. The last iceberg was one of many, drifting in an ocean cold enough to kill in minutes. A dusting of fresh snow gave every surface flat enough to stand on a coat of whiteness. Kyoshi knew that though the Southern Water Tribe had long since disowned the Tagaka family and their family tree, she still came from waterbenders. If there was ever a location to challenge an Earth avatar, it was here. They were surrounded by water and no Earth. Kelsang landed Peng Peng on the frozen beach and hopped down first. Then he helped the others off the huge bison, generating a small bubble of air to cushion their fall. The little gesture stirred unease in Kyoshi's heart, the playful bounce, like cracking jokes before a funeral. They watched Jianzhu's ship come in. It was too large and too deep-keeled to run aground, and there wasn't a natural harbor in the ice. So the crews dropped anchor, lowered themselves into boats, and made the little last piece of journey on these little crafts. One of them reached the shore much faster than the other. Jianzhu stepped out of the lead boat, surveying the landing site while straightening his furs. His eyes narrowed and his nostrils flare, as if any potential treachery might have a giveaway smell to it. Heiran followed, treating the water carefully, as she decked out in her full panoply of battle armor. That means she'd sink really fast, you know. The third person on the longboat was less familiar to Kyoshi. Sifu Amak. Amak. A-M-A-K. Not amok like I ran amok. Amak. Yun said, bowing to Sifu. Master Amak was a strange, shadowy presence around the compound. He was a waterbender from the north, who patiently waiting his turn to teach the Avatar. There was gossip around the staff that this grim-faced water tribesman had spent the last 10 years far from home in the employ of a prince in Ba Sing Se, who'd suddenly gone from the 11th in line of succession to 4th. His silent nature was the web of scars running around his arm and neck seemed like a warning not to ask. And yet the Avatar had regular training sessions with him, though Yun had told Kyoshi outright that she couldn't waterbend yet and wasn't expected to. He couldn't waterbend yet. He would emerge from the practice grounds, bloodied and mussed up with a smile, but blazing from new knowledge. He's my favorite teacher, Yun said once. He's the only one who cares more about function than form. There must have been a strategy at work with his attendants. Instead of a blue tunic he wore around the complex, they dressed him in the set of wide-sleeved robes, dark green, like Earth Kingdom style. And they gave him a conical hat that shaded his face. A proud wolf tail cut had been shaven off. And he took bone piercings. Amak took a small medicine vial with a nozzle built at the top. He tilted his head back and let the liquid contents drop into his eyes. Concentrated spider snake extract. Yun whispered to Kyoshi, it's a secret formula, and it's hideously expensive. Other than Tagaka herself, there are to be no waterbenders from either side of this negotiation, he said in a voice so high-pitched and musical, it startled her. So, he pressed a gloved finger to his hips, and he winked at her. So I think he put color in his eyes, because like certain benders have certain color eyes. So he was changing his eye color so they didn't go waterbender. Like, I guess they have blue eyes, you know. What does Katara have? He pressed a gloved finger to his lips, and he winked at her. The iris of his open eyes shifted from pale blue to halfway green, the color of the warmer coastal waters, and also the color of earthbenders. Kyoshi tried to shake the fuzz out of her head. She didn't belong here. With dangerous people who wore disguises like spirits and treated life and death situations as games to be won. Crossing into the world of the Avatar had been exciting back when she took first steps inside the mansion, but now the slightest wrong footing could destroy the fate of hundreds, thousands. After Yun told her last night about the mass kidnappings along the coast, she couldn't sleep. More boats full of armed men landed ashore. They lined up left to right, spears at the ready, the tassels of their helmets waving in the frigid breeze. The intent must have been to look strong and organized in front of the pirate queen. She approaches, Kelsang said. Tagaka chose a relatively undramatic entrance, appearing on the edge of the iceberg as a faraway dot flanked by two others. She walked along a path that ran around the icy slope like a mountain pass. She went slow. She was not in a hurry. I guess everyone dying of old age would count as achieving peace, Yun muttered. That was a joke, get it? She was taking her time so much, everyone, okay. They had enough time to relax and then straighten back up once Tagaka reached them. Kyoshi stilled her face as much as possible and laid the corner of her eyes upon the bloody flail of the eastern sea. Contrary to her reputation, the leader of the Fifth Nation was a decidedly unremarkable middle-aged woman. Underneath her plain hide clothing, she had a laborer's build. Laborer is somebody who works, I guess strong. And her hair loops played up her partial water tribe ancestry. Kyoshi looked for her eyes burning with hatred or a cruel sneer, but Tagaka could have easily passed for one of the disinterested southern traders who occasionally visit Yokoya to unload fur scraps. Except for the sword. Kyoshi had heard rumors about her green enameled sword strapped to Tagaka's waist and a scabbard plated with burial quality jade. The sword had once belonged to the admiral of Ba Sing Se, a position that was now unfilled and defunct because of her. After her legendary duel with the last man to hold the job, she kept the sword. It was less certain what she had done with his body. Tagaka glanced at the 20 soldiers standing behind them, and then spent much longer squinting at Kyoshi up and down. Each pass of her gaze was like a spray of cold water. I didn't realize we were supposed to be bringing so much muscle, Tagaka said to Janju. She looked behind her at the pair of bodyguards crossing only bone clubs, and then at Kyoshi. That girl there, though, is a walking crow's nest. Kyoshi could sense Janju's displeasure at the fact that she had drawn attention. She knew he and Yun had fought over her presence and her being there. She wanted to shrink into nothingness, hide from the adversary's gaze, but that would only make things worse. Instead, she tried to borrow the face Rangi normally used on villagers, cold, inscrutable. There's a word for the word wall. Inscrutable. I'll have to look it up. It's cold. Context meaning obviously means like cold. And, I don't know, it's scrut. What kind of word is scrut? I don't know. Okay. Her attempt looking tough was met with very mixed reactions. One of Tagaka's escorts, a man with stick-thin mustache in the Earth Kingdom style, frowned at her and shifted to his feet. But the pirate queen herself remained unmoved. Where are my manners, she said, giving Yun a perfunctory bow. It is my honor to meet the great avatar in the flesh. Tagaka, Marquess of the Eastern Sea, Yun said, using her self-styled title. Congratulations on your victory over the remnants of the Fade Red Devils. You knew of that business? Hong and his crew were a bunch of sadistic murderers, he said smoothly. They neither had your wisdom or your ambition. You did the world a service by wiping them out. Ah! This one studies like Young Chen and flatters like Kuruk. I look forward to our battle of wits tomorrow. Shall we head to my camp? You must be hungry and tired. Tomorrow, Kyoshi thought. They weren't going to wrap this up quickly and leave. They were going to sleep here, vulnerable, throughout the night. Apparently that had been the plan all along. Your hospitality is much appreciated, Janju said. Come on, everybody. Okay, chapter 7 kind of parts here and is long. This is an important chapter, though. I think much is going to be revealed here, because now we know Kelsang thinks Kyoshi is the Avatar, and we've seen that Kyoshi is the Avatar. She's the one who can bend all four elements. How is this going to unfold? Tune in next time.